Hello and welcome to Theme Park Information. In today's show we are actually going to have a plan of attack for Phantasialand. And I make the same joke every time, but yeah, this isn't how to invade the park. It is literally just a list of what rides to ride when and in order and stuff like that. Now, as a bit of a disclaimer, I have been to the park twice and this is mostly hold true, but obviously on certain days, certain rides for whatever reason will have a longer queue. I also appreciate this park has quite a few like dark rides and family rides. This is mainly about the major like coasters, thrill rides and like water rides. Certainly the water rides with this park involved. So obviously that does also depend on the weather. So let's get started, and I will be honest, I think the first thing you want to do, obviously you want to turn up to the park as early as possible, just before it opens, stuff like get in, and I've personally, and this is a bit risky, you probably, if you're one of the very first in, get fly out the way and done. If you are not, if let's say you arrive half an hour after the park is opened, that is when you want to go towards Black Mamba. As a rides like Taron and Fly get queues very early in the day, and in fairness, most of them will probably have like about like 40 minutes to like 20 minutes sort of time frame for most of the day. But one of the things, what you can do in this time is get all the other little rides done. And that's how you kind of have to look at it. You have to kind of look, right, well, at some point I'm going to be queuing for these two major coasters. So what I'm going to do is, while the park's still quiet, I'm going to get all the supporting coasters, all the thrill rides, all the water rides done. And it's like, so things like getting like Black Mamba out the way, going over, maybe getting like the Drop Tower done, maybe I say getting like Talican done. I know they're not particularly close to each other, but this park is not particularly big, so you can get things like that. You can get like the Colorado like Run and Rain Mine Train done. I say what you're going to do though is you're going to leave something like Cheer Pass as a ride to do after you've had food. So effectively you're still making progress and stuff like that. But anyway, yeah, you want to just get all the little side rides done. As I say, depending on the weather and stuff like that, you do also have rides like River Crest as well. That could be an absolute soaker, by the way, just as a bit of a spoiler. So do very much play that one depending on the weather and how wet you're willing to get. Because obviously you don't necessarily want to be soaking wet on like a pretty miserable day with some big rides still to do. Whereas when we were there, it was like 30 degrees or so, and I would happily get pretty soaked because you will dry off pretty quick. So yeah, I say that's one of those ones maybe doing just before lunch, and then I say you can have lunch, go on Cheer Pass, and then from that moment on, you literally have the rest of the day to just grab a couple of rides. Pretty much, you have Fly, you have Taron, you have obviously Wake as well, and then you have like the Winges, Freedom and Force. Now they tended to have a very much empty queue line pretty much all the time. I've never really had to queue for anything longer than 15 minutes for them, and they're also really good and really easy to do back to back. So I say they obviously, you probably don't want to do them after eating because they do spin pretty madly and have some twit tracks and stuff like that. So, but at some point they are quite easy to do. They're also quite out the way. So I say it's definitely a ride you can get done quite simply. I will say usually if you go on Taron between like sort of 2 o'clock sort of time, that is when it tends to have like a 20-minute queue, nice and easy. I say you can then just get on Fly. I would not recommend leaving Fly to right at the end of the day because I say it's right by the park entrance. It does get a line. I say it is well worth the line, but yeah, you can if you time it right, end up like, especially that sort of like 4 o'clock-ish sort of time, maybe like 3:30 sort of time frame. That is when it does tend to have quite a short queue. People tend to be doing other things. You just tend to people have been to that section already. Just get on it then. And I say once you've got on that, that's all the major coasters. I say you should be able to do the park in a day quite simply. You should be able to have time for re-rides as well on the popular coasters. I say it is quite doable, this park. I say it's not particularly big. It's quite well laid out. There's a few like extremities where it tends to be quite quiet as well. So yeah, overall, hope you've enjoyed the video. Don't forget to leave your own suggestions or ride this down in the comments below, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.